you said that some of your locations are technically franchises, some are licensing. What's the difference?
So the difference is the amount of regulation behind each. The franchise industry is governed by the SEC, the same people that govern the stock exchange, for example. So there are stringent rules. You can't just go and franchise your business. You have to conform to the regulations around that because you are representing a system and a brand, and they are looking for integrity around that. Licensing is a somewhat less rigid version of franchise where you're not beholden to as many regulations. And so part of why that's important is because you have a brand like Shake Shack that, as you mentioned, they don't franchise and they don't want to be seen as a company that franchises. And so they don't have to go through the process of becoming a franchise. They can say, well, we did a license here for this particular space, which doesn't open.
That's technically a license.
It's technically a license, yeah. And it's technically a license. And I think about 9 of 10 of mine are licenses as opposed to franchises. But it keeps the certain levels of liability kind of out of the mix for a brand like Shake Shack. So it gives a little bit more room to do business with operators outside of the company, and also prevents having to go the more strict, kind of SEC route of getting into franchise.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And from my understanding, that the lines can be fairly blurred in terms of businesses that are licenses and franchises. I've heard a bunch of stories of people getting in trouble after they've grown their particular brand and they license it out. And then the state comes back and says, well, nope, you're actually operating as a franchise and you didn't know it. And then, then they get in trouble and have to go and create a franchise model and all those different things. But so I guess what's different around, let's say, Shake Shack, which you're licensing, versus one of the franchise businesses? Like, can you give us an example of the difference in terms of the structure?
From a structure standpoint, it's like a deal structure standpoint, it's the same. Like it really is the same. I mean, you tend to have a royalty, which is a percentage of $1. You'll tend to have a franchise fee, which is the cost to get the rights to operate the brand. And then most of the time you would have a marketing fee just, for licensing or franchises. Now in airports, you tend to not have a marketing fee because you can't, we're not impacted by marketing in the same way a street side business is. I mean, people go to airports to fly, not to eat. They just eat on the way to flying. So, but from a structure standpoint, it's the same. What makes it feel different between brands is the level of kind of hands-on management that the brand, kind of looks for or performs with the operator. So some brands are very much hands-on, checking in with great frequency, and other brands are a little bit more hands-off and give you flexibility to operate. So the feel is different based on the brand, but the structure is essentially the same.
If you enjoyed this short clip from the podcast, you can check out another short clip right here. Or if you want to watch the full episode of this podcast, you can watch that here. And remember, knowledge is not power. It's applied knowledge that's power. Take care. Have a great rest of your day.